Well, I have the privilege this morning of introducing our guest, but friend among us. She doesn't need a lot of introduction. Dr. Samira Izadi Page is with us this morning to share a little bit about her ministry among Afghan refugees from Gateway of Grace. And Gateway of Grace is a ministry that mobilizes the church to care for refugees. And many of us have, over the last month or so, been bombarded by images of what we're seeing happening all around the world when it comes to people escaping war and famine and droughts and all of those things that make people leave their homeland. So Samira, come and join me here. And I would love for you to share a bit about what's happening currently that is making folks flee Afghanistan, and how is your ministry in particular already serving those that have come or in need of evacuation?
Well, first of all, it's so good to be here, and thank you so much for that introduction. For us, for Gateway of Grace, this new wave of Afghan refugee situation, and they're coming to Dallas, really started on the day that the government of Afghanistan fell, and we connected immediately. That Sunday, I was at church, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't go home during lunch, and in the afternoon, we have a Farsi church plant that consists of persecuted Iranian Christians. And two Afghan women came to us. They had been on and off part of our community. They were distraught, they were crying, and they asked us to pray for them, so we did. And then when I went home, I found out what had happened. One of the Afghan women, she was an engineer in Afghanistan, and she worked for American soldiers. Then she had to flee because Taliban found out. And when she came here, her degree didn't translate, and she had to work at a chicken factory, a chicken processing plant. And she had 3 children, so she couldn't afford childcare. She sent her children back to Afghanistan. And can you imagine what she must have felt when she found out that the government had fallen and she couldn't go back and get her children? I could not even imagine the terror in her heart. But the most amazing part was that she and her friend, they came to us on that most horrible day. They came to us and they wanted the Christians to pray for them. So that's one of the signs of hope that you were asking this morning. And then we started helping refugees, our students. We found that many of them had gone to visit family and relatives in Afghanistan, and they were stuck in Afghanistan. And we helped them. And then when they were evacuated, many of them were left at the airport in Washington, D.C. With nothing, and they hadn't planned to purchase those tickets. So we had to fly them back to Dallas. And then we started getting the SIV refugees. SIV stands for Special Immigration Visa, and those are people who have worked for Americans, and they had planned to leave because they felt threatened. So those are the ones that we have been working with, furnishing their apartments, helping them get resettled, connecting them with our ESL classes and resources that we have. And you know, they have various needs. Some of them are emotional needs that we have been helping them with dealing with their trauma. And then there is another kind of situation that we have to deal with. And there were people in Afghanistan who worked for American soldiers or American companies, but they didn't want to leave the country. They wanted to rebuild their country, and they were hopeful. They thought after years of war and desperation, they finally had a chance. And all of a sudden, overnight, everything changed, and they felt threatened and hunted down. So we can't even grasp what that must have been like. And those people are now evacuated, many of them, and they are at various military camps. One of them is in Texas, Fort Bliss, and they are being processed because these people, they didn't have a special immigration visa, so they are being processed as we speak. And we have a list of 5 families, for example, 5 families who are going to come within the next week to 10 days. These are people who are not sponsored by refugee resettlement agencies. Those agencies are agencies that are government contractors. They get a grant money to provide the specific services for a few months. And those are very important services, such as renting an apartment for them, helping them get their social security. But this is not the case with these non-SIV refugees. So these families that are going to come, we are going to need to rent an apartment for them. They don't have work permits or social security yet, and they're not going to have that for a few months. We are going to have to pay all the expenses, help them with all the expenses. And that's going to be a great work. While the news cycle has moved on for the most part from the Afghan refugee crisis, the work hasn't even begun. So that's where we are.
What a great call to action, Samira. I'm curious, can you be even more specific? Like, what do you need from us? Because I think oftentimes we hear about these things in the news and we feel almost paralyzed. Mm-hmm. Like, it feels so big that we can't even tangibly know how to respond. So here we are. What are some specific ways that we can help you in Gateway of Grace?
Yes, so we need volunteers. We need volunteers, and if you go to our website, you can fill out a volunteer forms to do various things, and you can share with us what your gifts and graces are, and we use them. We may not immediately put you to work because these refugees are going to come in the next few months, weeks and months. So that's one way. You can pray for us and for our refugees. That's hugely important for our staff because refugee resettlement agencies are overwhelmed. We come alongside them. We are overwhelmed, so we need really prayer support. And also financial support. As I mentioned, these new wave of refugees, they don't have any resources. They are not sponsored. The government is supposed to help with all of that, but that help hasn't started yet, but the refugees are coming. As I mentioned, we are going to receive them within the next 7 to 10 days, and we just can't tell them it's okay for you to be homeless here. And so those are some of the ways that you can help. And it's great because in the midst of all the feelings of really helplessness and hopelessness and not knowing what to do, God has provided opportunities for us that we can serve in tangible and real ways and make a difference. While the numbers are huge and we can't fix the world, right? These refugees who are here are part of the numbers that we see, and they are specific individuals and families that we are serving.
Well, Samira, thank you again for your dedication and commitment to God's people and for being such a great partner with us in this work, and we're grateful for you. So thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.